On today's episode of Locked On Wild, do we have an actual estimated return date for Kirill Kaprizov?
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we recap a 4-1 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. Don't let the score fool you in this one, because it was close until about the 5-minute mark. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about continued quiet play from the fourth line. And we'll take a look at the latest injury updates, because it sounds like we might actually have a timetable for return for Kirill Kaprizov. So we'll talk about all that here today. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wilds, and we're joined today by Alex Micheletti. Unfortunately, no victory Micheletti Monday because, well, the Wild lost to the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. But I'm going to do the same thing I did after the Colorado Avalanche game and just say I don't know what people expected. I actually thought the game went better than I thought it would have been, but that might have had something to do with the fact that Jack Eichel was sick for this game. So we'll just have to, you just got to take the positives at this point. The road trip ended up being 2 points achieved. And up until about the 5-minute mark in the third period, this was still a 2-1 game. And a couple of late goals for the Golden Knights pushed it out of reach. Hard to defend a 5-on-3. Actually, a 5-on-2. Alex, what did you think of the loss to Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, we saw this coming, right? And, I was mentioning it to you off air. Vegas lost to the Rangers the night before, so you knew that they were going to come into this game just, really wanting to win the back end of the back-to-back. And, they kind of took it to the Wild, and the Wild did try their best. It was a little scary there early when Jiricek went down. I was like, oh, here we go again. But it was nice that he was actually able to come back to the bench, eventually. And when I saw Jack Eichel say, not in warmups, I was like, well, maybe finally something goes the Wild's way. But Mark Stone was, he had a heck of a game, and it's nice to at least get a couple points.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I think you look at the Jiricek injury, and a lot of people were wondering why Keegan Kolesar didn't get called for a penalty there, because I saw the hit, and at least by any definition that I have known of boarding, seems like it probably should have been, but
it looked,
I don't know.
It looked like a classic board. Yeah. And thank goodness Foligno didn't get hurt in a fight. That would have added insult to injury. So he seems to be always the one to take on the person that laid a hit. So watch out for Foligno when he's on the ice if you do something wrong.
Yeah, I know it goes down as 4 goals allowed for Philip Gustavsson, but I thought he looked way better in this game than he had the last couple.
He kept him in it.
Yeah.
He tried. That save he made on Pearson too. Late. It was, he tried.
it just comes down to those plays late, those 2 goals that were scored from 5 minutes to the end of the game. Tomas Hertl and then Pavel Dorofeyev get the 2 separators. But beyond that, it was pretty tight game. The big thing that I look at, we'll talk more about in the next segment, is that fourth line is starting to get picked up a little bit. And so you're going to need to get some better play from that unit, but I think not to just add more fire to the injury situation. We I think have pretty good confirmation now that Joel Eriksson-Ek is playing hurt too.
Yeah. I mean, him hurt is better than, Marcus Johansson at 100%. The second line is still a mess. I don't know why they can't figure it out, but it was nice to see Ryan Hartman. Ryan Hartman's he's been playing a lot better. He must have gotten a talking to, but he's been stepping up. But it's when Kirill's out and there's no second line. I mean, the second line is just, there's nothing. That really hurts.
Yeah, you can't rely, especially against a team like Vegas that has really, really good defensive forwards. You can't be relying on one line to do all the scoring, because all the attention goes to that trio. And after a really, really good game against the Sharks, they get held to 6 shots on goal total. So that's what the better teams do. That's what the playoff teams do, is they have the defense to be able to take away your top option, and you have to get others to step up. But it can't just be one person. Like, it can't just be one person that scores a goal not in your top 4 options. It's got to be multiple guys that can do it.
Right, and I mean, it was nice when some of these depth defensemen were scoring goals, but you can't rely on that all the time either. But it goes to show you what a difference a rebuilding team is compared to a Stanley Cup type of team. It's just night and day difference. I mean, you look at Vegas's D; they're all big. They're all, I mean, Pietrangelo. I mean, all these, White Cloud and McNabb he's just a beast to try to get the puck off of. And and then you have Mark Stone. I mean, what more can you say about that guy? He does get picked on a lot for all the nonsense with the LTIR, but when he's healthy, he's fun to watch for sure.
Yeah. He is a beast with a capital B, and a couple assists. Just continuing to do Mark Stone things.
Yeah. Eventually, I know I'm put it up on Twitter, and everybody's like, "Well, they're not healthy." Well, at some point, you're going to have to beat these Western Conference teams, and I know the playoff or the record against Eastern Conference playoff teams is great, but hey, you don't play them unless you make a Stanley Cup. So you have to find a way to beat Vegas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas. I mean, Dallas was just on a 7-game winning streak. They got beat by Ottawa last night, which I can't believe it. That was the team that ends their streak. But I mean, if the records keep going like they are, it looks like it's going to be another matchup with Dallas in the first round for the Wild. It's until they change that playoff format. It's crazy. It's always Dallas Wild. It's always Edmonton, LA. I mean, some of these matchups, you see it every single year. It's crazy.
Winnipeg and Colorado again.
Always. Yeah, it's like, come on, go back to the 1 versus 8 or 1 versus 16.
Yeah,
what the fans want.
I get wanting to try to put together some Western Conference rivalries, but you may as well just start installing these as bowl games,
right? With
how frequently these teams get to the same spot in the standings and play each other in the playoffs. It's like, I want to say that the Kings have played Edmonton 4 straight years.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and it's gotten worse every time for LA. I mean, LA was a little bit competitive, but it just Edmonton just steamrolls them now. It's not even funny.
Well, time will tell. I'm just looking at the Wild schedule, and you do see from the middle of March to the end of the season, there are still a few cracks at these Western Conference teams, and of course there are some in February too, after the Four Nations. So there is some time to pick up wins. I still like 11-9 now since in the last 2 months, considering what we've seen from this team from an injury perspective. I will definitely still take that, but you are exactly right that you just can't run from that Western Conference thing the whole season.
Right. Yeah. Eventually you're gonna have to beat them. They aren't going to take the Wild seriously until they can achieve that. And what a weird schedule to just now. I know, just play Colorado. It took forever. I was like, what?
And now we play them like 6 times the rest of the season.
Now with a better goaltender, of course.
So we play them on Monday the 20th, and that's a 2 p.m. game because I believe Monday is a holiday.
Yes.
For many. So that's a 2 p.m. game on the 20th. Then on the 28th, they play the Avs on the road again. And then on March 11th, they host the Avs for the final time this season. So it's spread out, but not great.
No. Yeah.
I'd rather 2 in the first half, 2 in the second half. What's so hard about that?
Yeah. It's been a weird schedule to begin with. And then always in March, you got the state tournament that's at the X. So they have to go on a road trip then. We'll see. Hopefully no one gets hurt in this Four Nations tournament. If anybody gets hurt, these GMs are going to freak out.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, at least we don't have to worry about any of those weird home and home back-to-back games. Oh, wait, no, there are 2 more of those on the schedule.
Of course. I mean, it always happens, right? It always happens.
So they have a home and home against the Detroit Red Wings in February, which super awesome timing for that because Detroit is 7-1, I think.
Look at what they did.
8-1.
Look at what they did yesterday afternoon. I mean, they scored 4 goals against the Kraken like 7 minutes into the game. It was a complete meltdown by the Kraken. The Dan Bylsma era is not going well for the Kraken. At some point, the wheels are going to completely fall off, and I think they're going to start selling guys.
Yeah, that's a team that roster needs a face-off.
Yeah.
A face-off.
A facelift.
No, they paid plenty of people to exclusively win face-offs.
Yeah.
It needs a facelift at some point. But I was going to ask, glad I didn't, but I'm going to put myself on blast anyway. I was going to ask for Detroit. How's our guy David Perron doing? He plays for Ottawa now. Get with it, Toupal. Get with it.
Oh, good stuff.
Oh, but noted Wild killer Patrick Kane on the roster.
Yeah, so he's starting to heat up, and they're getting the new coach bump for sure with Todd McClellan. He's bounced around and now is in Detroit. So
yeah.
The
other home and home is a March 29th and March 31st home and home against the New Jersey Devils.
They're such a weird team to figure out. They're so helter-skelter.
Yeah. We'll talk about those games when we get to the appropriate months. But for right now, I think because this show has basically become Locked on Wild injury updates, we will get to the latest round of injury updates because I just threw out a number in the live show yesterday. I think it might be pretty close to what the actual return date is for Kirill Kaprizov. So we'll tell you when, where, and against whom, and if any of the other players that are currently injured for the Minnesota Wild are ever going to return the lineup. All of that coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get a $200 bonus bets guarantee. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. So head to FanDuel.com today and take the Minnesota Vikings, who at last check were 2.5-point favorites against the Los Angeles Rams on the road. They are going to do what the Washington Commanders did to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they are going to go on the road, and they are going to steal one from the Rams in Arizona. So take that to the bank, because win or lose, you get $200 in bonus bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to stick with us throughout the rest of the week. I think because the Wild only play Wednesday and Saturday, I think what we're going to do, we'll do a post game for Wednesday. But I'll let you know later in the week about Saturday, but we will do one for Wednesday for sure. Since there's only one home game this week, we'll make sure to get one in. Just looking at the injury updates, Alex. I'm trying to find the tweet. Okay, here we go. I got it. Russo has so many tweets because he just is keeping such close tabs on the team, obviously, which, by the way, big congrats to Russo for being named with Michael Grady as one of the finalists for, I forget the exact award, but it was...
He won it. Both
okay.
of them. Yeah, Grady was sportscast, broadcaster of the year. And then Russo's, sports writer of the year.
That's what it was.
Minnesota. So, yeah, two elite guys that we have here covering Minnesota sports. So
yes, so
shout out to both of those guys.
Congratulations to Michael Russo on that honor. Here's the tweet. Some Minnesota Wild injury updates from Bill Guerin. Kirill continues to skate in the Twin Cities and is possible to return on Wednesday. Obviously, the Wild want to make sure he's 100% healthy. Faber has begun working out off the ice. Lauko continues to skate, although again, we're still trying to figure out what the phrase "the rehab has stagnated" means. I literally have never heard that term in my entire life.
It's like general soreness, remember, for the.
So we just that's going to, so if we do a Mount Rushmore of injury terms, general soreness, bilateral leg weakness, and the rehab has stagnated are three of the four.
Only in Minnesota sports.
I don't want there to be knuckle push-ups is the fourth.
Yes.
Oh,
Kevin Love. God. Shout out Kevin Love.
Knuckle push-ups. Lauko continues to skate. Brodin is going to be a bit.
Yeah, when I saw that line, I was like, well, God, who knows what a bit could be with this Wild team in the history of Jonas Brodin. All that guy does is get injured now lately.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it doesn't seem short term.
And it's a shame too, because the performances, like Spurgeon and Brodin especially, I know we kind of were starting to question their age. Mm-hmm. They cranked it up performance-wise to a completely different level this year.
Yeah, it's just, Brodin took another, he was dealing with a bad back and now takes a puck to the foot. I mean,
yeah. So is it a bone bruise or is it broken? That's the question right now. Is it a bone bruise or is it broken?
Yeah, that's just pain. And, his back is just hanging on. They must be, doing everything to just get him on the ice, and then to have a shot, to the foot of all places too.
Yeah. It's that, and I'm sure that feels. I'm sure that feels just awesome. I've never done that myself, so I can't speak on it. But so I have said this a million times, and I probably should just finally take my own advice. It's hard for me to ever question the toughness of hockey players, like
Right.
ever again, because of the things that they deal with. Like you talk about players in other sports. Major League Baseball has weird injuries, like the weirdest injuries of all time by far. The NBA, you've got guys that rest 20 games into the season to try to get themselves back to playing shape. And at the end of the season, it's like you're reading off the call list on an episode of ER. You've got broken ribs, you've got a lacerated kidney, you've got
collapsed lungs,
you've got vertebrae that have shattered in somebody's back. It's insane.
Yeah, it's like they've been through war, and they'll do anything to win the Stanley Cup. That's why it's the best trophy in all of sports.
That's why it's the best league by far.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And
thanks, Gary Bettman.
Can the Wild catch a break one of these years? It's incredible the amount of man games lost by injury every single year.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke there, but I don't know. The average consumer credit card debt, just trying to keep your head above water. Same thing as the Minnesota Wild and the injury situation. Just out here, just in the middle of the ocean,
Yes.
trying to float.
Yes. Help.
I don't know. That was probably not my best effort from a joke perspective, but hey, we do what we can. The Jakub Lauko one is concerning, especially to me, because Alex, I don't know if you have been keeping track of the numbers for the fourth line here over the last ever. We're right back to where we were last season. So let's take a look. Let's play the hits for the fourth line or lack thereof as we finish today's episode of Locked on Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Guilty as charged. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, it was a couple of subscriptions that I signed up for during the job hunt. Well, guess what? I'm no longer on the job hunt, so I don't need to still be paying for those, and completely forgot that I was. And Rocket Money was like, hey, take a look at this. You realize you're still paying for these? And I was like, no, but they took care of it. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. And once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Reminder, as we just mentioned, we will be keeping an eye on things after the game against the Edmonton Oilers. We will have a midweek postcast for you. So a 7:30 start. That is I think an HBO Max /TNT game.
Yes.
Oh, so that's probably going to start closer to 8 o'clock then.
Yes, always. Pushing
Well,
it back.
That's okay. The
first game will go to overtime and a shootout.
Thanks a lot, TNT. I don't know why you guys just can't do Eastern Conference games on the East Coast at 6 p.m. their time.
Right. That would make too much sense.
Also, you know what would be just fine is not having to be contingent on the start times and just having the game start when they're supposed to start.
Yeah. It makes it tough for people that want to bring their families on a school night too. That's
That Florida Panthers game that was an 8:30 start, 8:52 puck drop. Like, come on.
What are we doing here?
I'm going to read you, Alex, from December 1st, because that I feel like is the time at which the injuries started to kind of mount. The point totals for particular players that have been playing mostly the bottom line or have been playing fourth line. Listen to this. So Murat Kuznetsov, in the last 20 games, he's got 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 total points, and 8 shots on goal. Actually, I take that back. What number is that? Oh, that's penalty minutes. So Murat actually has 12 shots on goal, so that's better, but 2 points in 20 games. Devon Shore has 1 point in 18 games. Travis Boyd, no points in 1. Brendan Gaunce, no points in 5. Ben Jones, no points in 19 games. Reese Johnson, no points in 3. So you mean to tell me that over the course of basically 2 months, 1.5 months, 20 games. How do I know it's 20 games? Because Marco Rossi hasn't missed a single one. In the last 20 games, a combination of 3 players playing on the fourth line has a total of 3 points. That's worse than last year, and last year was bad.
That's abysmal. And last night, against Vegas, they got scored on a couple of times. So that if you're not scoring and you're getting scored on, that it's just a disaster. Yeah, I thought there was going to be a little bit more offense for Kuznetsov. Just watching him, I got to see him when they played the Jets at home for a preseason game, and he just looked incredible. His speed, and just in the regular season here, I don't know what the deal is. Maybe he's frustrated being on the fourth line, but if you're on the fourth line, if you want to play in this league, you have to adapt. And at least if you're not scoring, don't get scored on. The Wild can't afford that for sure.
Yeah. Because the numbers, too, for those guys in that same amount of time, Kuznetsov is a -3. So Devon Shore is a -5. Brendan Gaunce in 5 games is a -3. Ben Jones is a -3. Jakub Lauko did play 3 games, I'm assuming, right at the beginning of the month. He was a -3.
Gaunce cracks me up though. Like they'll send him down to Iowa, and he'll get a hat trick.
Yeah,
and then it's kind of like they say in baseball, if a guy is like a 4A player, not AAA, but like good enough, or way too good for a AAA, but not good enough for to hit major league pitching. It seems like Gaunce is that type of equivalent for. You get to the NHL, and it's a lot different than AHL goalies for sure. But it's just it doesn't whoever they put on that fourth line, it doesn't seem to do the trick at all. I mean, it was like Vinny last year and Lucchini. It was kind of what happened last year is happening this year with a different cast.
Yeah, and it can't continue.
No.
Like you have to have. I mean, you have to have players that can at least give you something on that line as opposed to simply existing, which is why I think getting Lauko back is a step in the right direction, but that line is, I think, going to have to really step it up. And I know
even if Lauko, comes back, if it really is that core type of injury that he had, I mean, that is a beast to try to get back to 100%. And
Yeah.
who knows if he's going to be anywhere near where he's capable when he's back. So that's going to be one to monitor. But yeah, I mean, the penalty kill too. If some of these guys are on the penalty kill, they can't even do the job on the penalty kill too. It's just that's frustrating.
You can tell John Hines is getting frustrated too because
Oh, yeah.
he had Boldy and Rossi on the kill.
Yeah, I was like, what are they doing
against
it was
Vegas?
It was like the meme of the polar bear in Texas. Like, what am I doing here?
But this is where, like, I don't disagree when Hines says this stuff is like in the details that the players need to execute, because he has pretty much tried everybody that you would want to have on that unit. And there have been some stretches where it gets better, but
and then
by and large, it
they
just
give up a
continues
goal
to...
at the worst times of the games too.
Yeah.
It's like, and they almost had that 5-on-3 killed, and then they score off that. It's just, it's just deflating.
Yeah. It's like the penalty kill has also stagnated.
Right.
Maybe that's just the word of the day, is stagnated. Which, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, the definition for stagnated is where did it go? Oh, I don't want liquid. To stay the same and not grow or develop. So I guess what that means from a rehab standpoint is that it's not getting worse, but it's not getting better.
And that's why, I mean, with those core injuries, it's like, oh my goodness, who knows? It's like you use your core so much in everything that you're doing as a hockey player, and skating, and just if you can't move that core, that's like good luck.
Yeah, it's not ideal. And guess what? The schedule doesn't get any better. Home against Edmonton this week, then at Nashville and at Colorado on Monday. So, I mean...
Stay out of the box, especially Wednesdays. Dry
stay out of the box. Don't commit back-to-back penalties to give a team a 5-on-3 and then have a stick break.
Well, how about, if the anticipated return for Kirill, you get to face Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They're throwing them to the Wolves, off, to get back into game shape. Oh my goodness. If that's the case.
At least we know they'll be doing a lot of skating.
Yes.
You hit it right on the head. It is never boring. No. There is always something going on with this team.
Always. I thought it was absolutely hilarious that, against the Sharks, it's so quiet in the building. Fleury can hear a fan just trying to, just troll him. And that fueled him to have an amazing performance, probably one of his best of the season. It's just some of those moments. It's hilarious. And also, it's so funny in some of these buildings, there's not enough space for the backup goalie. So you have Gus like almost in the stands. That was crazy.
I always get a kick out of when Anthony LaPanta shares on Instagram his view of the arena.
Yes.
The Sharks one, there was like a beam, a steel girder connecting the two beams, and I'm like, well, that seems like a little bit of an obstructed view.
Yeah, who is designing? They clearly didn't ask the broadcasting teams how they wanted things to look for them to be able to do their jobs.
The construction guy, the foreman is like, no, we can't cut out of these beams for a broadcast window. Are you nuts?
Heck no.
And then he goes to Vegas and he's like, it shows perfect ice view, no obstructions whatsoever. They've got the like castle thing off. I want to go to a Vegas game so bad.
They did an amazing job, and they seeing them win a Stanley Cup, that was cool, and just the parade that they had in Vegas was awesome.
maybe if the Wild fall to wild card 2, I'll go to one.
Although I don't want anything to do with Jack Eichel in the playoffs.
And we're not going to get ahead of ourselves because I will credit this team 100% that no matter how many injuries they have dealt with, they have not cracked. Yes, they've lost games, but they just continue to battle every night.
It's good leadership. The Parise Suter contracts are haunting the team, but the new leadership, they got the poison out of the locker room, and there's no division between older guys and young guys anymore. Remember that? And Parise having Adam Oates come in, monitor practices, and just what a crazy time that was when they were on the team.
Parise staying on the ice through his shift to try to help get Marcus Foligno a hat trick, and then the Wild giving up 2 goals in 8 seconds.
What are we doing here?
Okay, that's a choice.
Yes, just you can't make it up.
Never a dull moment. But we like to kind of go with that same theme here at Locked On Wild, so we hope you enjoy watching as well, because there's never a dull moment on this show. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like button on YouTube. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because the more people subscribe, the quicker these players are going to come back from injuries. That's just how it works. So hit that subscribe button, tell your friends, and stick with us here throughout the week as we continue to guide you through the rest of the season. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.